You're listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. I am your host, Al Mega, CEO of Comic Crusaders and Undercover Capes. In this show, I'm sitting down with creators from all walks of life to talk about inspiration, process, the lessons they've learned, and a whole lot more. What up, mi gente? It's your man, Al Mega. Welcome to a brand new Comic Crusaders podcast. And today, folks, we got an amazing guest that has a dope line of books that does a deep dive into your favorite Marvel characters. My man has been a mainstay in the industry for a minute, and now again, he's bringing us all these awesome books for our reading pleasure. That way, when we're on the defense about our favorite character, we could go to this book like an encyclopedia, and this is why our favorite will win. Let me introduce this amazing writer, this author, the man himself, Mr. Rich Johnson. Wepa, how you doing?
How you doing, Al? Good to see you, man.
No, thank you for coming on and talk about these dope projects you got out there that that celebrate our favorite Marvel characters. And I need to know why Marvel, because we have so many comic characters and a whole bunch more we're gonna be diving into. But before we get into anything else, Rich, we got to start with some origin stories. So tell us a bit about yourself, where you're originally from, and the early origins of your comic book journey, if you will.
Yeah, actually from Western New York, Jamestown, home of Lucille Ball, who just had like her 190th birthday recently, I heard.
Oh,
online.
Wow. A legend. Love Lucy, for real.
Got into retail, book selling, was a buyer, did kids publishing with Scholastic. I got at Scholastic when Goosebumps was just hitting by R.L. Stein.
Oh, wow.
I got into comics in 1997 when my wife and I had
Wait a minute, 97. I mean, I graduated in 93.
Professionally, 97.
Oh, professionally, okay.
Professionally, yeah. I read as a kid.
Right.
I read all this, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. Another favorite was Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos.
Oh my God, Rich, talk about that.
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't that an amazing book? Beautiful art all the time.
Yeah.
As a kid, I used to go to Grand Book Center in Brooklyn, and they would have 4 packs for $1, and every pack had at least one Sergeant Fury and Howling Commandos book. Would you believe that?
Yeah, I used to take one of the stick pretzels and bite off the end and pretend it was a cigar while I was reading, like Sergeant Fury.
Rich knows the OG Fury. That's right, baby.
Yeah.
Right.
I got out of comics when I was in high school and college, and then in 1986, I picked up something called Batman: The Dark Knight Returns by this guy named Frank Miller, and I went, "What the hell is this? This is very different than what I read as a kid. It's dark, it's deep, it's adult," and I got hooked again. But professionally, I was working at a publisher in Philly called Running Press, and unfortunately at the time my wife's mom's cancer returned, so we were just looking to get back to the New York area, and I was looking for a job, and she found in the New York Times a listing for a national accounts manager for DC Comics. My job was to sell graphic novels, which nobody cared about in 1997.
You're right. You're so right, Rich. No one graphic novel wasn't a thing that was too big of a book. We liked our collectibles. Graphic novels won't be anything. I'm just sharing that was the attitude in that era. Era.
Absolutely.
All right.
And for the first couple of years, when I said graphic novel, a lot of people thought I was, pitching erotica. It's comics, dude. It's comics. It's not dirty.
Rich Johnson, a porn peddler.
Yeah.
All right.
So I got there, and I realized my job was to sell into markets that never really took our stuff much. They took Mouse back in the day. They took the Dark Knight, a little bit, but
far and few in between.
Sustainable, nothing that really worked. I was like, how am I going to do this? And I took a lot of crap from a lot of buyers because I sold to everybody. I sold to every retailer out there, and there were more. I sold to Books A Million and Borders and Walden Books and Barnes and Noble and B. Dalton and Crown Books, DC area, and Laureate's, and the wholesalers, Ingram, Baker and Taylor, and Amazon back when they were just starting out. So I did a lot of traveling. Plus, I did a contract in Canada to get distribution up there for our books into the bookstore market. Went to the first American Library Association trade show where people would come up and look at me and go, what are you doing here? This is a library show. I'm like, I'll show you what I'm doing here. So it grew until in 2003, 20 years ago, this fall, we had at DC Comics the first New York Times best-selling graphic novel, original graphic novel Mouse had done it before
Yeah.
with Neil Gaiman's Sandman Endless Nights.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so I got to work with Neil and Frank Miller and a bunch of
Oh,
other people. Yeah.
that you must have totally geeked out. Like here I am selling, and I'm now hanging out with these cats.
Well, in '97 when I met Neil, I really hadn't read Sandman. I was mostly a superhero guy, and I know
Okay.
he was just finishing the run on Sandman, and he wasn't quite Neil Gaiman yet. I met him. Our publicist introduced me to him, and like to me, he was just this British guy with long hair and a leather coat and a black t-shirt and black pants.
Looking like the other guys that came over from over
Yeah,
there.
he was like, "I'm gonna get my books from the bookstores. Rich, could you help me with that?" And I'm like, "Neil, I'm having a hard time getting Batman in right now, but I'll do what I can." But he was great. He was, to me, he's kind of the gold standard of authors, for any industry. He's just for comics, for novels. He built this image of himself. He got into social media before it was a thing. He was
Yeah.
always great with his fans. We'd spend hours doing signings. So that was great. And
So
then I
wait,
was in DC. I became a VP. Was there for almost 10 years. That I
a
co-founded.
VP of DC for 10
I
years?
was.
Wepa, look at that. But before we get into that,
Yeah, go ahead.
how did you convince these bookstores to carry,
You-
graphic novels, or rather,
you know,
comic books in the
Yeah.
book format?
What I would do is, because most of the buyers I had weren't fans. They didn't know the medium at all.
All right.
So I played a game with myself called Find the Geek. So if the buyer didn't get comics and like them, I thought somebody in this building does. I don't care if they're IT. I don't care if they're another buyer. I don't care if they're maintenance. I don't care if they're an executive. I'm going to find them to prove to this buyer that they're viable. Remember being once at Musicland. They used to have the Sam Goody and Media Play stores.
Oh
I
my
was out
God,
in
he's a
Minnesota.
Sam Goody. My
Remember
God.
Sam Goody? And the
Yeah.
buyer didn't know anything about comics. And I think some guy walked in. He might have been IT, and he sees the books that I has. And he goes, "Oh my God, what are those?" I'm like, "Hey, you want to take a look?" And I could see the look in there, like, "Oh my God, there's an audience for these things." So I had to earn their trust. I had to be really, honest with them and tell them what they should buy and what they shouldn't, more importantly.
Okay.
Because I didn't want the category getting kicked out of the stores very quickly, especially in,
But that
certain
could be
markets.
honesty. Again, there's some
Yeah.
salespeople that you got to be honest. Again, if you want to get
You
the
do.
word out there, you got to present
You
the
do.
best. At the end of the day, no disrespect to other creators or any other books and
Yeah.
titles, but it's just listen. We got to push what people are relating with, so that way we could build this market bigger.
And
And I
some
love that
accounts,
approach.
like Walden Books, we had a spinner rack, and I had like 4 pockets on the comic spinner rack for graphic novels.
4
And
pockets. Oh my
the
God.
magazine, you're being bought by the magazine buyer, and she told me one year, "Oh, those 4 pockets you have?" It was when the first Star Wars prequel was coming out, and she said, "I'm going to put all Star Wars books in there for the rest of the year, so I'm not going to be buying your stuff." It's like, "Excuse me, the pockets that I own, that we paid for?"
Ooh.
So I got angry, and so I found
Ooh.
a book buyer and said, "Can you take over this category?" And they did, because it was very small at the time. Actually, his name was Stu Carter. He was buying regional books, like books on New York City and Boston, and it kind of grew from there.
Amazing.
So I would do a lot of stuff to sort of, manipulate people.
Hey, listen, it's sales,
Yeah.
man, but I love the approach. You were
Yeah.
whiffing out who's the geek, because if I show that this guy loves this or gal
Yeah.
loves this, these buyers are gonna be like, wait a minute. As you said, the Sam Goody
Yeah.
guy behind the counter's eyes opened up when their geek said,
Yeah.
"Ooh, what's this?"
And the same in
Great
libraries.
job.
I found these librarians who love comics, who love manga, and they became like our evangelists. They went out and preached the good fight for everybody. So
Beautiful.
that was great.
Making your job a whole lot easier.
Yeah, they could talk for me. Yeah.
Awesome. So so now you're a VP at DC. I mean, how did that feel? And what was the term of your tenure? What was that
It was
year
from
like?
97 to 2006. I thought it was a really good time at DC. The graphic novel business was growing like crazy. We were getting a lot more recognition. We were getting, the New York Times to look at our books. We were building something that never existed before. And I always thought that, I was bringing more fans to the table. And now, there are more readers of comics and graphic novels than there has been since the 1940s.
Oh yeah,
It's grown that big.
let's
So
talk
DC,
about it.
it was fun. It wasn't fun every day. There were challenges, but to work for your childhood heroes was kind of cool. One time, my son, we were at some function. He was like 6 or 7 or something like that, and he told the other kid's father, he goes, "My dad works for Batman." And the father said, "What's his name? Alfred?" He kind of didn't believe it. So,
I know he actually works for Bruce. All right, get out of here,
yeah.
bro. I mean, but that's awesome. All right, so when did you start getting creative on your own? When did that happen? When you started picking up a pen and and wanting to
I
share?
always wanted to. I've actually written sort of a graphic memoir that my agent is out shopping. I started editing when I started consulting after I was the
Okay.
co-founder of Yen Press, the manga
Oh
company.
wait, you found Yan Press?
I co-founded it. Yeah,
Co-found? Wait, what? Wait. So how long after DC was this? Because
that was
manga
right
being
after DC. It was
but
right
right
after DC.
after. Oh, bro,
Yeah.
you're a beast. Cause that means you jumped in just when it was like getting super
Well,
hot
it
in
was sort of
America.
the perfect storm of bad timing. When we got there, Borders was in Walden Books was still around.
Okay.
Um, as the 2 years went on, Borders was collapsing,
Their
and they were
borders closed.
shutting all the Walden Books. Yeah, they were dying, and manga tanked for several years. It went from
Okay.
I think a $73 million business approximately to like 32 million in a
Oh,
couple of. Yeah, it,
damn.
it tanked big time. It died for a
That's
while.
crazy.
Yeah, Tokyo Pop closed their offices in the States. They're back. Digital manga, not digital manga, Broccoli manga, Central Park Media, a bunch of these little manga publishers went out of business, and it was not a good time for manga at all. It's
Whoa.
recently made a comeback,
Yes, it
but
has.
it was a bad time. Yeah.
What's up, Awesome Sauce Radio? How you doing? All
So
right.
yeah, so when I started consulting, one of the companies I worked for, I started acquiring books as an editor at Penguin. Um, when I consulted
Penguin.
for
You
Penguin,
just
yeah,
you be going everywhere. My God, Rich. I
yeah,
mean,
I've been a lot of
wow.
places. Yeah,
Whoa, DC. You're
I consulted
impressed.
for Legendary Entertainment, the movie studio when they
Oh yeah,
launched
yeah, yeah, yeah.
time for the
Godzilla and
Frank Martin
Kong.
book.
Yeah.
Um, just a ton of people, including a
Amazing.
company called Graphic Mundi. They're part of Penn State University Press. It's their graphic novel line.
I know Graphic Monday too.
Yeah,
Whoa,
so
dude, you're involved in a lot of
so
stuff. This is
so I helped them
amazing.
get off the ground, and it happened right at the beginning of COVID. And they're actually
Ugh,
going to not hire me for a while. But I said, look, it takes a lot to get a imprint up off the ground. I go, and secondly, I have an idea. I said, when I was at DC, we did a book about 9/11. It was an anthology,
yeah.
and we co-published it with Dark Horse. They did a second volume, and then when I was at Lion Forge as a VP there, we did a book called Puerto Rico Strong.
Oh, I got that right there. Thank you for doing that. I love that book,
Great book.
Rich.
They're both great books. And my idea was, we're at the beginning of this weird thing called COVID. Let's do an anthology, donate some of the money to charity like we did with those books. And it really launched that imprint really well. And I think it's still their bestseller. So it was,
Wow.
so I wrote a little piece for that. I co-edited it. So it was the real thing with that was like, when do we stop? Because, it kept going on. It's like we could have written like 6 volumes easily.
Yeah. Oh man, let
But
me tell you, thank you for doing what you did at least with that
yeah,
book
check
too.
that out, COVID
Yeah.
Chronicles.
Yo, dude, it's amazing stuff. All right, so let's start getting into your works because right
Sure.
now your recent works include titles such as Captain America, Hero Icon, The Amazing Spider-Man, Web-Slinger, Hero Icon, The Incredible Hulk, Worldbreaker, Hero Icon. What inspired you to focus on these iconic Marvel characters, especially I see your history being on DC, so I'm like, whoa, you go from DC now you're writing about Marvel.
Yeah, I'm going to the dark side. Well, I used to editor Jessica Fuller over at Rizzoli. Until recently, I left. I was a adjunct professor at Pace University in their publishing program. I taught
Okay.
their like 101 basic publishing course.
Oh, cool.
So I would bring Jessica in as a guest. I knew her from before. I met her a long time ago. So she was looking for a writer, and I said, God, I'd love to write the Spider-Man book. She goes, you want to do all of them? I'm like, okay. So we discussed the concept. She had the licensing deal with Marvel, and I said, what if we, make these really about the stories, about what are really great stories? Because I know when you walk into a bookstore or a library or a comic shop, and there's this big wall of Marvel comics, and even DC, you're like, where do I begin? How
Mm-hmm.
do I start? How do I want to read more about this character? I don't know what to do. So in some ways, in addition to being these gorgeous art books, they're kind of guides. So like Captain America, we rank it by what you need to know about the character. So it's private, corporal, sergeant, captain. So at
Mm-hmm.
the private level, you need to know nothing about the character really to enjoy those stories. And the more you go up, the more continuity you need to know. Like up in the captain level is like Civil War, so you need to know a lot more about the characters. Or I'm blanking on one of them. And so we did that with all of them. So that's the kind of the purpose is I try to get you interested in the stories to go out and buy the graphic novels or the comics.
Yeah, and look at this book. I mean, who did that artwork too? That's my Captain America with the chainmail on.
Oh,
I'm
I
digging this.
remember his name. He was the one
Uh,
who did the Tanisha Coates run on Captain America.
all right,
I can't think of his name off the top of my head. I think it was
I
a
remember in a bit. Don't you worry. But this
yeah.
is amazingly gorgeous cover. So this is your first baby that came out,
Yeah, that was
correct?
the first one. Yep.
Excellent, excellent. How was it received, and how much fun did you have writing it? I mean, how far were you digging? Did you find out anything about Captain America that you never knew before?
Sure. Well, the process is, I do research. I ask people like, what are the best Captain America stories, and I create a list, share it with Rizzoli, we share it with Marvel. They say, well, how about this one instead of that one, and we come up with like 30 stories to talk about.
Okay.
So from there, I got to read them all. Even
Ooh.
if I've read them, I got to read them all.
Oh my
And
God! What a horrible task to
I
read all
know
those.
to read and write about comics and get paid for it. So I got to read them all. And you know, Captain America changed as a character. Back in World War II, he was, fighting Nazis. They were war comics, but once they, thought him out later on, more and more they became like thriller espionage comics with, him being part of Shield and, the man with no past and man out of time. The whole Winter Soldier thing. It became a different kind of comic. Um, and I always loved Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale.
Yeah, amazing.
So the Captain America White book is, I think, really great. Spectacular art in that one, just amazing.
Man. Did you get to hold any of the original stuff books in your hands, or did you?
No, it was all on my iPad.
Oh man, wouldn't it have been nice to smell the ink on those classics?
Yeah, because then I also had to take screenshots of what art I might want to see in the book, and we
Okay.
sent it off to Rizzoli and to Marvel, and then they sent us the files for it. And the designer who did the first three books, Maria Cabardo, was great. She would pick and choose which ones to add.
Excellent, excellent. So then, how did that book perform when it first was released? How did the people receive it?
It got good reviews and good notice. Amazingly, Spider-Man has won an award. It won this magazine called Folio magazine. It won an indie award for best pop culture. And I
Really? Hey,
yeah,
congrats! I mean, that's awesome. I mean, again, another gorgeous cover. Our Spidey traditional. I mean, non-armored. It's a spandex suit. I so love
so
this.
who's your favorite, Al, out of these three? Who's
Out
the
of the
one you
three, out of the three, man, I like. Listen, I'm a hot-headed Puerto Rican, so of course I'm gonna love me my Hulk. You know what I mean? The man of rage. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
please, listen. He's like every man. He just wants his peace. Don't disturb his peace. He's gonna
yeah.
rage out. That's what I love about that, man. I mean, again, look at that cover. This is your latest book too, man. So how much, but before we get into that, how much fun did you have with the Spidey book?
Well, Spidey, I kind of, reading him as a kid and then rereading him and, reading the Spider-Verse stuff and everything, you kind of realize that even though they're action comics, I think at the heart of it, Spider-Man's a romance comic.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, the hard times of poor Pete, man.
Yeah, and it's all about the people he loves from, Aunt May, Mary Jane, Gwen. It's protecting the people who mean the most to him. So it's, and who doesn't want to be Spider-Man? Who doesn't want to be this kid who feels awkward, who gets picked on at school, and suddenly he's got all these powers?
Yep, and for him to hold himself back and not beat up every bully, I mean, that takes a lot of strength,
Yeah, yeah.
real strength. And again, thanks for doing that. And then you did my boy recently right here, my man Bruce Banner, the Hulk, and his many iterations. Even though I was digging through, I seen the Rick Jones version and this that. I mean, you giving us a dope rundown here. So talk about this latest release, and is it out right now where I could go
Oh,
ahead and
right now.
spend my
You can
dollars?
buy right
There we
now.
go.
Yeah.
There we go.
So the Hulk is, he, He's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I also kind of compared it to it's Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale in Hulk Gray. There's a scene that kind of echoes of Mice and Men. You know, the big strong guy who doesn't know his own strength and the smart guy, but it's just kind of merged together in one guy. He's the monster too. And I think the tough part about writing the Hulk probably is, you know, usually the monster's in the background. You know, you don't see a lot of Frankenstein in Frankenstein, but very often the Hulk, the one who just smashes, is at the forefront of stories. I like the stories more where either he was joined together and Bruce and Hulk were living in the same body.
Oh yeah.
Or where there's one story where Bruce is off on an island like Dr. Moreau, experimenting on all these other creatures to turn them into, you know, with gamma rays, turning them into like versions of the Hulk. And he's kind of unhinged. He's coming apart at the seams.
Yeah, that's the worst version of Bruce Banner, which is a lot scarier than Hulk could ever be.
Yeah, and I also found out reading these comics that, you know, Bruce Banner eats at a lot of diners.
He has a heavy build. His tab must be insane.
Yeah, he's always at a diner. So, and the Hulk, I mean, doesn't everybody have a rage monster inside of him?
Yes, we do. All of us do. I mean, this is what makes this, you know, but you know, it's how you deal with the rage and who the character is. I mean, this is what's great about Hulk, because you know, there are those moments where, you know, Hulk is, you know, actually has a sensitive side, if you will, or he knows right from wrong. You know, not much of a monster as he may be perceived to be.
So, do you have a favorite screen Hulk?
Oh man, what was it? The Edward Norton. I like that one. I like that version. You know, because the Ang Lee was all right, but he has too much of a baby face. You know, the Professor Hulk. I mean, that homie's doing right now from the latest Avengers films. That he's all right, but I don't know. I think Ed Norton captured my Hulk, especially in the fight. Like I just want peace. When him and Abomination were fighting, and Abomination was kind of head him pinned to the wall. You see, there was that moment where his face is like, I really don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? Goes to show, it's like, yo, he may be a monster, but all he really wants is the peace, like all men do. All right, let me tell
you. Did you watch the old TV show?
Oh, of course, man. I've met Lou in person, and he's still as big as the Hulk. Let me tell you, he's a scary man still.
Yeah, I've seen him at more conventions. It's crazy.
You know? Yeah, and I mean, there would be no better Bruce Banner though than Bill Bixby. Bottom line, I mean, Bill Bixby was the man, amazing actor. David Bruce Banner, he wasn't Bruce. He was David Bruce Banner.
David Banner,
yeah. So you know, amazing show, and I dug it. So you know, let's get into the book over here, because each of your books carries the subtitle of the hero icon. You know, could you elaborate on the significance of this theme and how it ties into the characters that you're exploring in these books?
Well, they're all heroes to people, and they're certainly icons. You know, with and the movies have only you know, magnified that, where, you know, probably the Marvel logo is one of the most recognizable logos in the world right now. And it's probably alongside, you know, Starbucks and McDonald's and you know, it's just this hugely recognizable thing because of the movies and the comics. So, you know, they're the icons that you read as a kid and you've grown up with it for the past, you know, well, Captain America is 80 years old. And the other ones were in the 1960s. You know, so you've had them. I don't know how old you are. You're probably whatever age you are. You probably read them as a kid, and
I'm in my late 40s.
Yeah, they've been with you probably your whole life. You read as a kid.
Yeah. As a kid, they've always been with me. I mean, in some shape, way, or form, whether it was through TV or the old mini comics, and then finally graduating to the normal size comic, and then, you know, as an 8-year-old reading Savage Sword of Conan, which I shouldn't have been reading, but hey, thank you, Mom.
Yeah. Or even the animation on TV.
Yeah, great stuff back then. Let me tell you, my Transformers, my G.I. Joes, my He-Man, I love all that good stuff. Let me tell you, I love it. All right, so let me ask you, do you have an opinion on Stan Lee? Because Stan Lee is widely regarded as a legendary figure in the comic book industry, right? So has his work and legacy influenced any of your own creative process or approach to storytelling?
Well, you know, it's pretty amazing that, you know, somebody said once the difference between DC and Marvel was the DC characters are created all by different people, you know, and for the majority of the Marvel ones, it's all by one guy, you know, with either, you know, with someone else helping him, Jack Kirby or whoever.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I think one of Stan's greatest strengths was being an ambassador for comics.
100.
You know, he was out there just, till his last days promoting the medium of comics. I don't. He's probably the most recognizable name in the medium of comics. I can't think anybody else that everybody knows Stan Lee's name. I mean, he
Oh,
was a
absolutely.
he was a sales guy. You know, look at his appearances in the movies. So,
Oh yeah.
anything, any inspiration you get from him, it's, never give up. Even when, Marvel wasn't doing so great, he just figured out a way to pull it together and to put great new characters out there.
Excellent. All right. Just put ourselves in a current theme. That diversity and representation have become more prominent topics in recent years,
Sure.
especially in comic books, right? So, how do you approach, if you will, incorporating any diverse perspectives and experiences into your storytelling?
Well, I mean, it's, there's the issue of, you know, any diversity should be told by a diverse person or not. That's always the argument. If it's a book about a LGBTQ person, should it be by an LGBTQ person? I agree with that, but I also disagree. I agree that it makes it a little more authentic, but also there's the imagination of a writer. You
Yeah.
know, you don't have to be the Hulk to write about the Hulk. You don't have to be a serial killer to write about a serial killer. But that said, a friend of mine, Joe Illidge. I don't know if you know Joe at
Oh,
all.
I big Joseph Illich absolutely do.
Yeah, Joe's great. I
Yeah,
knew
he's
Joe at
amazing.
DC, and then at Lion Forge we worked together. Joe's a great guy. You know, he's certainly a champion for diversity.
Yes, he
You
is.
know, and I love that he's out there pushing it. And it's long overdue because Joe's a part of Milestone too,
Oh
back
yeah,
way back in the day.
the original, a part of that original crew.
Yeah,
Last I was on a podcast recently where they were celebrating Milestone, which is a great, again, having an
yeah,
original diverse universe that unfortunately was stuck in contract, of problems for years. While people were clamoring for diversity and them having an original universe, not
yeah.
being able to use it was very sad up until recently.
And some people I think they they were ahead of their time. I don't think they were. I think really of the time.
Oh
That's
yes.
what the industry was ready for. But whatever happened, with DC and them happened. Unfortunately, it's really kind of too bad that
Yeah,
happened for so long.
it did, but hey, we got him here now. Hopefully we can
Yeah,
make up for the lost time, which is important. You know
yeah.
what I mean? All right, so with your extensive experience, right? What advice would you have for aspiring comic book writers and creators that are looking to make their mark in the industry today?
I'd say a couple things. You know, see what's out there. Don't restrict yourself to one thing. You know, find out. There's more than just superheroes. There are memoirs out there. There's horror. I used to say that graphic novels was like every category in a bookstore jammed into one, even
Mm,
nonfiction. So, and also try to learn the business a little bit. You don't want people getting taken advantage of by anybody. You know, try to learn the business a little bit, and you know, talk to a lawyer when you write a contract. Make sure you're protected. Never give your rights away to anybody unless they're going to pay for them. You know,
hmm
just make sure you're doing the right thing.
Excellent, excellent. All right, so with this
Also,
book being, mhm.
promote yourself.
Oh,
Get out
absolutely.
there and be the face. It's hard for some people; they don't like that. But there are certain creators out there who are great. I mean, we talk about Stan Lee, who are just amazing at promoting themselves.
Yeah, I mean, but you also come from a sales background, so you yourself are used to putting yourself out there and speaking, publicly, if you will,
Yeah, and it
about
probably didn't hurt
projects
that
and books.
I was a theater major in college too, so that maybe helped a little
Oh,
bit.
no wonder you sold so much because you were putting the drama. Like, you gotta have these books, putting that Shakespeare into it. I
Yeah,
feel you.
yeah.
Okay, so with these books that you have out, especially this new Hulk one, are you gonna be doing a book tour or anything, or signings anywhere we could meet you, see you, ask you more questions about these dope books that you got out?
Nothing is set up right now, but if there is, I'll let you know. And then we're doing another book. Just
Who's
finished it.
next?
It's Avengers.
Oh snap! No way. You must be having such a blast, just touching these characters. I mean, has there been any moment in your journey writing about these characters, all of them, where there was something that stood out? You're like, wow, I never knew that.
Oh, sure. I mean, especially with the Avengers, there's so many different iterations of them. the new Avengers, the Uncanny Avengers,
The
a
Mighty
lot of that stuff I
Avengers.
never read. So, I got to read all that stuff that I never read before.
Oh,
And
nice.
even with some of the stories, like there's a really great moment in one of the Spider-Man stories. It's One More Day. It's one of my favorites.
Mm,
It's where it's after Civil War. Peter Parker had to come out, reveal his identity, and he was living in Stark Tower for a while, but they had a disagreement, and Peter thought, Tony's stance was ultimately wrong
mm.
on registering all the superheroes. So he's kind of on the lam in a cheap motel, and somebody goes to shoot him and kill him, and they hit Aunt May instead, and she's dying. And then a villain, who I won't reveal, you have to read the story, comes to him and says, "If you give up your love for Mary Jane, Aunt May can live." That's, not only is there, with great power come great responsibility, also sacrifice. That's a big part of it.
Oh yeah, I know that story very well because it caused a hoopla amongst fans. Big rumors. I mean, and now we see revelations after the fact in recent issues of what happened. I mean,
Yeah.
with that relationship. That bastard. Anyway.
What are your favorite stories that you have?
Oh man, for me, it's a DC book by Sean G. Murphy, and it's outside of the superhero realm. It's called Punk Rock Jesus, and it's
Oh, I know.
basically I love that book. Again, just the whole concept. Could you imagine? For me, the best way to I explain it is, it's the Truman Show, but with Jesus. And could you imagine that they clone Jesus and they make a Truman Show out of it?
Yeah.
It's wild rumors. You have I mean, it's beautiful art, beautiful storytelling, so well done. Like, and the reason I always try to talk about that one is because everybody we correlates comic books is superheroes. No,
Right.
it is more than that.
A
You
lot
know.
more than that.
So this is the perfect example of a non-superhero story that will blow your mind.
Well, DC, I had the good fortune to work on Vertigo.
Oh, great stuff
You
from
know,
Sam
Why the
Ex
Last Man?
Machina was one of my favorites out of that
Yeah.
word. Love that. I mean, please, when is this movie coming? Strike be over. I need to see this on Film with May 100. You know what I mean? One Tower Survives.
Yep.
Wild book, man. It was so great, and especially in that. Again, I'm an OG New Yorker, and when right after 9/11, this book comes out, and I'm living in New York as I'm reading this book. I'm like, wow, so
Yeah.
relevant for the time. What a masterpiece of a book from
Yeah. It was
Vertigo.
one of my favorites. And with that, we had Fables. We had
Oh yeah, man.
Preacher.
Oh, fire! I mean, amazing show, but the book kicks the show's ass a million times as well because obviously a little bit more brutal. But
The book
wow,
is
the show was
crazy.
fantastic.
The
Yeah,
book's
that book
crazy.
is nuts. Listen, I've read the whole run just because of the show. I said, okay, I'm digging the show. Let me read the book. Oh my god, right? I wish I couldn't put it down.
Yeah. Although I love
Wonderful.
the actress who played Tulip on
Yeah.
the
Oh,
show. She
she
was
was
great.
amazing.
She
Oh
was
yes, she
great.
was amazing. I mean, but and the homie, the Saint of Killers, holy crap, was he
Yeah.
scary looking.
It was a good show. I haven't finished it yet, but it was a good show with the episodes I saw. Yeah.
Finish it up, finish it up. It's
I know.
actually really
I got
good.
so much to catch up on, dude.
I mean, you must have been proud too. I mean, again, being associated with the Vertigo and then seeing even the success behind Lucifer. One
Oh yeah.
network drops it and then Netflix picks it up to finish it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it was a great show. Again, Neil Gaiman. Good stuff.
100 Bullets. I'd like to see that come to film too.
Oh, that's another one. I read
100
all those graphic novels. Look at that graphic novels.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rich, for making sure that my friend could pick them up at his local shop.
You're
Because when
welcome.
he lent me those, I had such a blast. And yeah, I agree. And Transmetropolitan. Again, the more
You
you talk about Virgo, there's just so much goodness. It's outside of the superhero realm that would just
Yeah.
blow your mind.
Yeah, and Transmit was like an early experiment for Vertigo.
Yeah, yeah.
Honestly, the
Great
book
book.
was doing okay, not great. We thought if we'd rush a trade out, that we might have enough sales with the book market sales and the comic market sales that it would survive, and it did.
Oh
So that
yeah.
kind of became the model for Vertigo.
That's Spider Jerusalem, man.
Yeah,
I dig it. I dig it. Rich, I mean, thank you for being a part of that, and pushing that because now, the graphic novel market is absolutely insane. I mean, it's graphic novels before the floppies nowadays. Most publishers, are like, you know what, create all 4 issues and we'll release it as a graphic novel because
yeah,
that's the lane. I mean, look, I could see your shelf. I have a shelf full of porn shelf, shelf porn of myself, graphic novels. I mean, as much as I love my floppies, I like to keep my OG so they could stay expensive, and I open up my graphic novel, and that's what I like to read.
Yeah, and it's just a very small portion of the graphic novel collection behind me.
I can't imagine, brother, because I mean, with all the stuff you read, you probably get inspired. You know what? I want to put this on myself. I want to put this on myself.
Yeah, and I tend to want really nice editions of them now.
Of course. What's your gem? Do you have a gem in your collection before we go?
I probably have a couple. I've got a kitchen sink. It was a daily strip of Batman. Actually, I could pull it.
Folks, we're gonna start getting a look into his.
We're getting visuals now. It's this.
Really?
Press, but if you open it up, it was a limited edition, and there's a book plate in it, signed by Bob Kane and Dick Sprang and a few of the other guys who worked on it.
Get out of here! When did you get that?
I got it when I was at DC. And a bunch of other stuff too. I mean, I got some with working with Frank Miller, I was able to get him to sign my original Dark Knight Returns run.
Oh, do you have the leather bound edition?
I do.
Isn't that a beautiful? That's how I got introduced to that book, through the leather bound. It looked like a Bible to me, and you know what? It wound up being a Bible of comics for real.
That was published by Walden Books, and I worked for them at the time.
Oh, yo, bro, where have you not worked? Jeez, bro.
Yeah, I've been everywhere.
What publisher have you not touched yet?
Unlike COVID, I've been everywhere.
You know what, though? But we love your infection because it brings us joy. Don't you worry, all right? So we'll take the COVID variant of Johnson any day, all right? So long as it brings us comic books. You know what I mean? You're awesome, brother. I can't wait to see you on a book tour. Hopefully, listen, if you're in New York, New York Comic Con is around the corner, and I think people would love to eat these books up and even pick your brain on a panel and discuss our favorite heroes and those mythologies that you are just reading about. I mean, I'm jealous. I can't imagine the stuff you may be digging into. I mean, out of everything you've read, I probably read maybe a very small portion of the Cap. I got all the Essential Hulks, so I got into the 70s so far. I'm making my way into the early 80s now.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the Hulk. That's what I'm saying. Just now because of your book, is this going to be my shortcut in the run?
And why do I think, Al, that maybe you've got those Hulk hands somewhere in your house?
Oh no, but I have a joke. I have a friend of mine that he tends to use the word that when he's with a lady and he has fun, at the end of the night, he goes, "Oh yeah, I smashed that," he says. So I said, "Just for you, I'm going to buy you the Hulk gloves. And instead of you telling me that, just send me a picture of the glove that you had fun."
Yeah.
Now, but my friend, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about, folks, again, look at these books. Look at these gorgeous books.
They are gorgeous.
Yes, Captain America, First Avenger, hero, icon. Spider-Man, Web-Slinger, hero, icon. And the Incredible Hulk, Worldbreaker, hero, icon. These books are sexy, beautiful shelf porn. You got to add that, and hopefully, Rich will be sharing his convention schedule or signing schedule whenever that comes up, so that way you get these books and pick his brain. Because listen, I think you're my type of comic geek. This is what I need you to con, so that we can hang out at a bar afterwards, and we're gonna. I
should be in New York Comic Con. I'll be there.
Yep, I'm there already as press. So we have each other's information. We are going to connect, folks. I'm gonna take a picture.
We'll get a drink.
Yeah, absolutely, and bring me one copy of each. So that way, I want some signs from you. That's the only way I'll buy it.
All right.
All right. Do we have a deal? All right. Now,
thanks, Al.
You're a bookseller. You're used to carrying books. And with that, folks, again, check out Rich's amazing books. I have the link below to where you could actually purchase them. All right. So show the love for this amazing and very talented individual with a plethora of knowledge in the comic book industry. Please make sure to follow us over at comiccrusaders.com, my extended family over at undercovercake.com. But of course, follow this YouTube channel, subscribe, turn on the notifications, because we got shows going live almost every day with amazingly talented people like my man here, Rich. And again, Rich, thank you. Mi gente, thank you. Much love. I appreciate you. Hasta la próxima. You know what it is. Wepa! Yeah. Thank you for listening to the Comic Crusaders podcast. If you like the content, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Also, please visit ComicCrusaders.com and our extended podcast family over at UndercoverCapes.com. And also, make sure to download the Comic Crusaders app on the Google Play Store today.